Ahoy, Nakama, and welcome aboard, or walk the plank. We're your co-captains, Adam and Ed, and this is the Void Sentry Podcast. Your weekly deep dive into One Piece lore, lost treasures, and the wildest fan theories from the Grand Line to the Void Sentry. From ancient secrets to Yonko chaos and fresh chapter breakdowns, if you're chasing Laugh Tale, you're in the right crew. Yarg! Hit subscribe and let's set sail. Hello, and welcome back to the Void Sentry Podcast. Unfortunately, One Piece is on break this week, but we are here to bring you episode 51, the Elbaf Mural Super Show. Now, since we're just popping out of our post-Herald flashback, you will remember that we were first shown the mural in chapter 1138 of One Piece. And since it's been a while, we'll just give a brief overview of the mural before diving right into it, as it were. The mural was made by Elbafian children a long time ago, and they basically depicted the three worlds of One Piece, the first world, the second world, and the third world, as it were. And we can see that there's a depiction of a giant city that may or may not be the ancient kingdom, a giant tree that may or may not be the Eve tree, and a decisive final battle. We also see these gigantic creatures that look like gods, one perhaps being the earth god, one being a forest god, and one being a sea god, or a demon perhaps. But let's dive right into it. So first we start off with the first world, and I will start by reading the notations or the incantations over each individual world or age, as it were. So, within the earth there was fire. Mankind succumbed to greed and touched the forbidden sun. The enslaved prayed, and the sun god appeared. The earth god raged with its serpent of hellfire, shrouded the world in death and darkness, and they will never meet. So, let's get started. First line, within the earth, there was fire. Right? Fire, a flame very similar to the mother flame, or the core of the earth. Now, the mother flame can be interpreted as a variety of things right now. We do know that Vegapunk recently rediscovered the mother flame. It is a limitless form of energy. It is kept in a container or reactor right now that is like a nuclear fusion reactor. So we've speculated before that the mother flame could be the One Piece world's representation of nuclear energy or nuclear fusion. However, this could also be reminiscent because it was deep within the earth, so this could also be like the planet's life force or life energy, as it were. It could be some form of spiritual or emotional energy. And I've also heard people postulate that originally it contained like the essence of One Piece gods, perhaps. Maybe if we want theory craft with a little bit, that the earth god and the sea god could have originally dwelt within the mother flame. And we'll discuss that a little bit later, because I know it seems a little bit off topic. However, the mother flame itself is limitless energy, and within the earth there was fire, the mother flame. So moving forward, mankind succumbed to greed and touched the forbidden sun. So mankind, obviously meaning humans. I like to imagine the ancient kingdom was once formed with representatives of all races working in harmony, just to, be free, be peaceful, laugh, enjoy their lives, build something better. However, man, as we are, tend to be a little bit greedy. We like to hoard resources. We like to covet shiny things. So it seems that mankind would succumb to greed and touch the forbidden sun. One would think the forbidden sun here being the mother flame. So in doing so, I believe the humans went ahead and made a deal, or somehow came in contact with the god of the sea and the god of the earth, and made a pact with them to be the high upon high, the holy of the holy, the celestial dragons, if you will. They wanted to be the supreme race, so they made a deal with the gods of old. And they also exploited the mother flame itself, as we've seen, to go ahead and power their cities, to give them this lavish lifestyle, right? So, moving forward, the enslaved prayed and the sun god appeared. Vegapunk described to us that the Nika fruit itself is a manifestation of the thoughts and the prayers of the slaves. So, humans, or not necessarily, but the slaves all banded together, and through wanting and praying and wishing, they created the sun god, the manifestation of the sun, the freer of the slaves. And it's very interesting because given that Nika was created by the thoughts of the slaves, I always thought it was pretty interesting that Nika has all these feats. He can do all these things. Not only is he funny, he can manifest baseball bat out of thin air. He can do all these Tom and Jerry rubber hose animation-esque shenanigans. And I always thought it was the slaves telling each other tall tales of all the different things that Nika can do, because his feats would have to grow over time as their hope would dwindle. They would have to beef themselves up with bigger and bigger feats of Nika in order to stay hopeful at the end of the day, because their plight was just so enormous. So humans, I always thought that through misusing the mother flame, that the humans themselves could potentially bring about the destruction of the earth as we know in our world, because we have nuclear energy. We've kind of opened Pandora's box, so we do have the potential to ruin the planet from misusing technology and these resources and this energy that we've harnessed. So, moving forward, the Earth God raged, and with its serpent of hellfire shrouded the world in death and darkness. So, this lets us know that the Earth God itself was enraged, leading to the destruction of the ancient kingdom, I believe through the misuse of the Mother Flame, or perhaps with this pact that the Earth God made with the humans, that the Earth God would send its minion or its attack, the Hellflame Serpent, upon the Earth. And I think this is detailing the creation of the Red Line. I always thought the Red Line could have been created by Pluton during the Void Sentry. However, that feat might seem a little large for a weapon an ancient ultimate weapon is even capable of producing. I think this is more on the level of a god. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, like we have a Earth God, so like it would make sense that this is something that an Earth God could do is create land, you know? So yeah, I agree that I think that this might be the Red Line creation story. I mean, if you look at the Red Line kind of from like a map, you can see that it's just like a ring, right? So it kind of makes sense that yeah, this is something that a god could create and did create. And just like just with stories in general, it kind of makes sense that it was done by like when you think of like creation stories, you think like mythological like beasts or whatever, and like old people like in ancient times might associate like a ring around the earth as like a giant serpent. So it all kind of rings true to me.
So, rings true. I love that. Would you be surprised if I told you that this was not the first time the Red Line was referred to as a gigantic serpent?
No, it wouldn't surprise me because this was made by ancient or by Elbaf giants like recently, this mural. So I would assume that this has been said previously.
Dory and Broggy also have referred to the Red Line as being a gigantic blood-stained serpent. So, I think this is a callback to something that we've been told about previously, and I think this is the creation of the Red Line, and it would make sense that the Red Line was created to divide the humans or the races that were left in order to prevent them from organizing against the humans and like the hierarchy, the celestial dragons, as it were, right? So I think that the Red Line was a weapon of mass destruction. And I also think that it split the world in the future to prevent people from being able to meet and organize. People as in like all races, right?
Yeah, I think that that kind of rings true with like the end of like the passage saying that and they will never meet. Like divide and conquer, right? So like like groups of people are weaker when they're separated. So I agree with you. I think that it makes a lot of sense that this is a way to kind of control the world and what happens.
So furthermore, let's touch on that a little bit because I wrote a couple more things. Like again, the world was engulfed in war, as in they will never meet. Families and communities were destroyed. I'd like to imagine that this creation of the Red Line or this fire serpent attack was like on par with like a nuclear attack in our in our world.
Yeah, I would think like if you think about in real life, like how is landmass created? It's usually volcanic like volcanoes, erupting, and then like the magma dries out and becomes land. So I'm thinking that there might have been like a lot of like volcanic activity in the red line that kind of resulted in the landmass being formed.
I think that's very possible, but I was speaking on to like the magnitude of this event, right? So we know in our world that volcanic eruptions can kick up so much like ash and dust in the atmosphere that it can like block out the sun for a time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
essentially just creating barren land, right? Like if you block out the sun, nothing can really grow. And for all intents and purposes, you're shrouding the world in death and darkness, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And blocking out the sun and the moon. So like a lot of cultures, like even in real life, worship the sun and or the moon. So it would be pretty demoralizing to not be able to see it like for a while, like if there was like a bunch of ash from like volcanic eruptions. So yeah, this would be pretty demoralizing in general.
I think it would be cataclysmic, right?
Yeah.
So ends the first age, as it were, with the incantation or notation. So let's discuss some of the things that we see in the mural. So the first thing I think we should talk about is the ancient city. I like to imagine that this is like the ancient kingdom, right? We see they have like skyscrapers and advanced machinery. I thought it was very interesting. I'm trying to connect all the dots here, of course, all the time, but we see like gears, right? We see machinations in this ancient city. And I just thought it was pretty interesting that the gears themselves have like 9 spokes, similar to Nika's shield. So maybe this is a subtle nod that what we're seeing is in fact the ancient kingdom. So we can see them, obviously they have what we would consider modern day technology. It looks like they have a rocket ship or rocket technology. I just think it's interesting that the rocket ship is upside down. I don't know if that is a design error, but I like to think that perhaps this could be like a subterranean craft, like going down and trying to assist in either exploring the world or finding more mother flame. What do you think?
Yeah, so like it's potentially possible that like mankind came from outer space and decided to settle on this planet. So maybe that might be why the rocket ship is there as well. But yeah, like a lot of like to your point, a lot of underwater vehicles can look kind of like spaceships too. So it might be an underwater vehicle or some sort of like drilling vehicle. It also kind of looks a little bit like a bomb. So I could even see it like that, but it is facing the wrong direction. Yeah, there's a lot of machinations. And then there's also like a bunch of people with like halos that are, it looks like they're going down like an elevator shaft, like underground. And then when they come up, they lose their halos and they have this like ever growing piece of maybe flame. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it would make sense if it's a flame because flames do kind of grow over time if they have like something feeding it. So yeah, I found that really interesting. Like what do you think the significance of that is, of losing the halo and getting the flame?
So, like originally, I thought it was like the people with the halo are actually descending underground and like coming back up and like bringing the mother flame up with them. However, at the same time, I looked at it a little bit reverse. I think these might be like a depiction of like the celestial dragons ascending into godhood, right? Because originally you start with nothing and then you become a god and you're welcomed by like the other gods. And you sit here with the energy on top of the world and you're just enjoying your life while utilizing this technology and this labor of slaves.
Yeah, I don't mind that that interpretation because it is kind of like losing the halo. Like halos can represent like innocence or like even your soul. So it's kind of like selling your soul to obtain this like power. And like if like most of the celestial dragons that we meet in the series, like they definitely fit the term of soulless with how like vile and corrupt that they are and how low they like treat like other people or societies in the One Piece world. So I kind of like that. Yeah.
So also the boat that we see that they are feeding all of this mother flame into, like originally I just interpreted this as like, oh, they're just trying to feed the city. However, I think we might actually be viewing the ancient kingdom creating an ancient weapon. This could be like the creation of Uranus or Pluton. We know that at least the ancient weapon that we've seen Emu use, right? It works off of utilizing the mother flame. I think it would only make sense that it was in part created by utilizing the mother flame in some way, shape, or form, imbuing it maybe.
Yeah, that's a good idea that it's feeding an ancient weapon so that I mean like what happened to Lelusia is like the only time we've seen Emu use this weapon, but like yeah, like it would have to be powered by something pretty tremendous. So even if it's not necessarily Mother Flame or it's like a little bit of Mother Flame, yeah, it could totally be that. That makes a lot of sense.
I also thought that given that they are basically throwing the flame to the serpent, I thought it could be like an offering to the Hellfire Serpent itself. But just if we're going to talk about the Mother Flame like a little bit more, this ties into a couple more things that we see on the mural. So we see a panel of what looks like people in a boat servicing the gears that are, the machinations of the city. However, I never stopped to think exactly why there's a floating boat in the middle of a city. And floating, I mean not on water, but on air, as in this boat itself is levitating. And we see what looks like the mother flame around it and around the rocket ship as well. So I would assume that this is like a subtle nod that the mother flame is used to like power their technology, right? And we also do see Mother Flame actually ascending into another prominent element on the mural, at least in the first world, which is the moon itself. So I think this is also a subtle nod to the moon being colonized by the ancient kingdom, if not the moon colonizing the earth. I don't I don't know how I feel about it. I like to imagine that in times far past, advanced humans were able to colonize the moon and then they realized there were no resources up there, so they came back. But they kind of diverged in a way and became the Sky Races and the Lunarians. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly about the creation of the Lunarians or Skypians or whatever, but yeah, it does seem interesting that these like flame, like motes of flame are floating up towards the moon. So yeah, I do find that really interesting. If you also look, like the entire like mural, like on the bottom, there's like flames across the entire mural on the bottom. And I just find that really interesting. There's a lot of fire depicted. So it looks like fire is important across all three ages as well. Yeah, I just found that interesting as well.
So, a couple things, right? So, this is a story about the sun, and sun primarily is fire. But also, the giants are very intertwined with Norse mythology. So, this is like Ragnarok. This is literally the destruction and the renewal of the world in cycles over time. However, fire itself is a symbol of rebirth and renewal, right? But also destruction. I mean, a lot of times forests over time will die and then they will get renewed by fire as it burns down and the nutrients return to the soil. So,
Also, like the phoenix is a fire creature that has rebirth qualities as well. So, yeah.
it's true. And in the center of the mural, we see a giant tree, which is basically the rebirth and renewal that we spoke about previously. So I think
Hmm.
it all ties together. Cool. So moving forward, I think we're ready to go on to the second world, as it were. So the second world, we'll start with the notation. Within the void, there was breath. The forest god tamed demons, and the sun spread the fires of war. Those of the half moon dreamed. Those of the moon dreamed. Man killed the sun and became god, and the sea god stormed. They will never meet. Ooh, okay, foreboding. So we'll start with the first line. Within the void there was breath. So I believe that this is a nod that the earth was wiped barren after the Hellfire Serpent raged. I think that ash basically covered the earth for a period of time, leading to a mass extinction. But in doing so, even though the earth was shrouded in darkness, there was a little glimmer of hope. There was a breath of light, as it were. And I think this is it's a nod, obviously, to the Void Sentry. You had a little interesting tidbit to me about Emu. You want to share?
Yeah, so emu, like mu actually means void as well in Japanese. So, and like emu also like has stated like out loud that like it's like I am the void. I believe Emu has said that in the past as well. So this is kind of the century of Emu because, or the age of Emu, I should say, because like this is second age is what we believe depicts the Void Century. So it kind of makes sense that like Emu is the one who kind of created the Void Century. Emu is the one who's trying to like hide all the history. This century was created by Emu. This century was erased by Emu. It's Emu's century. It's Emu's age. So that's kind of what I was thinking. Sorry, that's what I was thinking about this whole situation.
No, you're fine. So I don't necessarily know how I feel about. So I think like Emu's age stretches farther than just the century, right? Like even to
Sure,
the
yeah.
Void Century happened in the past, but we know that Emu still controls in the present day. So
But yeah, what I really meant by that was that the Void Century was like Emu's doing is really what I was trying to get at.
oh, 100%. I totally agree with you. Uh, I think that the breath, at least, is signifying that there was life still left within the world, and humanity and the other races, like, they catalyzed a bit. So I think moving forward, the forest god tamed demons. I think it's pretty obvious that the forest god was responsible for creating the devil fruits. I don't know if these demons existed beforehand, or if we're talking about like real demons in the One Piece world, or if it's something more ephemeral. But we know the forest god tamed demons and led to the creation of the devil fruits. Now, I always assumed that Emu like controlled or created the devil fruits in some way because the devil fruit users angered the sea god. I think it's pretty easy to say that Emu is a manifestation of the sea or the
Yeah.
sea god.
Yeah, I think that it makes sense that the Forest God wanted to fight against Emu, like you're saying, the Sea God, and created the Devil Fruits, most likely from the Eve tree, which is, I think that the mural is depicting the Adam tree, not the Eve tree. But yeah, so I think that the Forest God utilized the Eve tree to generate these Devil Fruits, and then as punishment, anybody who eats one of those Devil Fruits, they're unable to swim in the sea anymore because like it's kind of like an affront to the sea god to be utilizing these powers. So I think it kind of makes sense.
So I also think it's really interesting. So I don't want to skip over things, but so the people of the moon dreamed and the people of the half moon dream, right?
Hmm.
All these dreamers are just leading to more devil fruits being created, right? And
Right.
we know that like the will of people manifests these devil fruits, and that the devil fruits through Vegapunk letting us know that devil fruits are like what humanity could be, right? Like all these potentials to like be more than what they currently are.
Yeah, if we want to actually expand a bit, like the people of the moon, that's just like different groups that we've already kind of seen in the One Piece world. So like we know that like the Kazuki clan is heavily associated with the moon. So I think that they're included as the people of the moon. And also like I was thinking like even like the minks are associated with the moon because of like the Sulong form, and like they're also associated with the Kazuki clan. And then as well as like the Lunarians, obviously, because they're literally called moon people. So yeah, it's just interesting. I just want to expand on that. And then there's also the half moon, which we're assuming is going to be like the clan of the D.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. But before we get a little too ahead of ourselves, so I always thought Emu like took control or like corrupted the devil fruits in some way. I think the forest god created them, but Emu now like controls ownership of them. You made an interesting point that perhaps Mary Joie holds the Eve tree in some way or has like control of it. I just think that was
I think that
interesting.
that's I think that Marijua might be like where the Eve tree used to be before, because I don't think the Eve tree exists anymore. So I think that that might have been where the Eve tree used to be.
It's definitely possible. I think it's very interesting that every time we see Emu's like in a garden at Marijois. I also think it's very interesting that the Gorosei have like demonic devil fruits.
True.
So
Yeah.
I thought it was possible that Emu corrupted the fruits in some way before giving them to his minions.
Yeah, maybe the corruption of the Eve tree is what killed it. Like, so Emu might have like generated these like really ultra powerful demonic devil fruits that might have overutilize the Eve tree to the point where it wasn't able to bear any more fruit and eventually wither away.
I think it's very likely. So, but moving forward, so the sun spread the fires of war. So I interpreted this as the sun being the mother flame and like the artificial, like an artificial sun, perhaps. I think that the ancient kingdom or whomever, the aggressors against the world government, rediscovered the mother flame or like the tech of the ancient kingdom. And this really like empowered the war effort to fight against Emu and the world government, or not the world government, but like the original 20 kings. What do you think?
Yeah, I have a different interpretation. I think that maybe the sun spreading the fires of war might have been like, you know how like Nika is the sun god and is associated with like the drums of liberation. So maybe in this case, it's like the sun is like trying to fight back and like trying to free the slaves, stuff like that, where, it's a literal war that's happening due to, the sun god not being happy with what's going on in the world.
I think so. I think it's the sun trying to like free the slaves, right? And the sun really being unhappy with exactly like the world order right now.
And we see that the sun died. In the description, they say man killed the sun and became God. So like this might be that whole fight where Nika eventually, loses the battle, unfortunately, and dies and goes away. So it could be a literal war, is what I'm trying to say.
No, it was though. So I think this is literally describing Joy Boy dying. Joy Boy fighting against the world government and dying, and then the world being plunged into darkness during the Void Century.
Sure.
Because that's the thing, right? So like, excuse me. So Joy Boy wanted to go ahead and raise the Noah, and we even see this in the mural itself. Joy Boy wanted to go ahead and raise the mural, and it was struck down by like an ancient weapon. Joy Boy couldn't fulfill his promise and, had to wait 800 years to be like reincarnated in order for like Luffy to come around and really fulfill the prophecy.
Yeah, when you say raise the Noah, that's that like image on the mural that looks kind of like Zunisha, but it also looks like a ship as well. And we know that Joy Boy is close friends with Zunisha as well. So it's probably both a ship and the Noah potentially, because yeah, we see like a giant ark with a bunch of animals, and that might be like the creation of like the Minxes. And we do see a person with like angel-like wings, so that might be like the sky people from Skypiea. So yeah, there's a lot going on in the mural, and it's not it's open to interpretation for sure right now, because like we don't know for sure exactly what's going on, but it's kind of like the way that it's drawn, it represents multiple things in one image, because it's kind of like using negative space to create like the illusion of an elephant, a giant elephant.
Yes, we can talk about that a little bit later, but yeah, so we see like an ancient weapon basically attacking the Eve tree, right?
But do you think this is the Eve tree, or do you think that this is the Adam tree?
I don't know, because if you look in the boughs, like above the tree, in between the books for the murals, like you see fruits.
Oh, that's true.
Or those could be planets. I don't know. But I think it's more likely they could be like fruits, because if you look, it looks like there's roots above, right?
There are like patterns and stuff, yeah. It could be fruits, yeah. It could be fruits. So yeah, okay.
So I like to imagine that also the god that we see in the middle is probably like a manifestation of the forest god, or like his guardian, because we know he's fighting the Hellfire Serpent, which is like the guardian or like the pet of the earth god.
Yeah, so right now it seems like the sea god and the earth god are allied, and then there's like five like primordial gods in the One Piece universe that we know of. There's like the sea god, the earth god, who seem to be allied, and then there's also the forest god, the sun god, and the rain god.
And rain god. Yeah.
Yeah, those three seem to also be allied. But yeah, it looks like this giant dragon is fighting this giant serpent, and they're both kind of like breathing fire at each other. So we think that the giant dragon that's on top of this tree might be the actual forest god.
I think it's possible, but I mean, in looking at it, I don't think that Do you think the serpent is the Hellfire serpent that's being described in the first world? Because if I think that's the case, like I don't think the forest god would waste his time on a pet. So
Yeah,
I think perhaps.
I think that the serpent represents the earth god because like when you think about like giant worms, like they live in the earth, like it might just be like an avatar of the earth god if anything, but like it would still be a great enough threat to for like the forest god to need to like take actions in their own hands. That's how I interpret it, but you know, like again, it's there's room for interpretation for anybody else as well.
Yeah, I could see that. Could definitely see that. So, oh man, we keep getting sidetracked here. But going back, so those are the half moon dreamed and those are the moon dream, like we described before. I think the people of the half moon are definitely the D, and I think the people of the moon, I think they are, most obviously Lunarians and Sky Races, but I think it could also encompass the rest of the people who are, or excuse me, the rest of the races that were allied with the Ancient Kingdom, like Long Arms, Long Legs, Kozukis, the Minks, the Giants, even. And
Yeah,
basically, they're waiting for the dawn. Go ahead.
because we also know that there's also people that like worship the sun. Like I'm getting like a little off topic slightly, but like you know how there's like Nolan clan people. I forgot their name, but like he's got like a sun tattoo. There's like the Sun Pirates. There's Nika. There's like Kuma, who's a buccaneer who worships the sun god. So like there are also like people that worship the sun as well, and I think that all of these people are ultimately good guys, like people that worship the moon or the sun or the half moon. And then also for the half moon, if they're the D, do we want to go into who we believe, like where we believe like the will of the D like started from?
Yeah, we could talk about that a bit. I like to imagine like the people who hold the will of the D were like part of Joy Boy's original crew.
Yeah,
They were
yeah.
like because I think Joy Boy's original crew had like representations of all the races on his crew, and it was like the Ancient Kingdom. Like everybody lived in harmony after the Ancient Kingdom's destruction. And I think the people who are on that crew and their descendants are given like the hidden will of D to signify like they're carrying on Joy Boy's will and they're trying to usher about the dawn of the new world.
Right. And like Joy Boy is also associated with the sun. So like honestly, it just seems like all three of these like groups of people, groups of worshipers are all kind of on the same side ultimately.
Yeah, I think so, and we see that actually in like the final battle, right? Or at least the
Yeah.
one that's depicted in the mural.
Yeah, yeah.
But so yeah, I think in doing so, both of these civilizations were sitting around and are dreaming and working to manifest the new world. And I think these dreams actually enhance like the forest god's ability and manifested like more fruits. Similar almost to like how Bonnie's fruit works, right? Where like as long as Bonnie can like envision a future for somebody, like it becomes reality and like their own little universe for like some point in time, even though it's like hard to conceptualize, right? That's how she can give everybody the Joy Boy cloak. Well,
Yeah.
assuming so once she awakens it.
I mean, if she's able to do that, which I do think that the story is leading into that direction, her fruit is gotta be one of the most powerful fruits in all of One Piece. I forget, where did she get that fruit from again?
I don't recall. Actually, didn't the world government feed it to her? I'm pretty sure like the world government like fed the fruit to her to like
Oh, like
experiment on
shortly
her.
after she was born.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so the world government was in possession of this like I mean like what is this fruit even called again? Like
Oh,
dream fruit or I don't
I
know.
think it's very okay. So if we think about it, there's a lot of parallels between like Luffy and Bonnie, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that like Luffy, remember he ate his fruit because he was like hungry and found a random fruit. I think it would be very similar to like Bonnie. She's always seen eating stuff and stuffing her face. She's
Yeah.
known as the glutton. So I think it was very possible she was like stuffing her face and she like accidentally ate the fruit just like Luffy did and got this power, even though it's like some crazy powerful broken fruit that she shouldn't have, just like Luffy's, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking up her devil fruit right now. Let's see. It's the age fruit. So I don't know. It's possible that it even has like a secret name as well because it's like even though we see her like changing people into different ages, like we see that she's able to, you know, change people based off of like futures that she sees. So it might actually have like a hidden name. outside of age fruit, similar to how the Gomu Gomu no Mi had a hidden name, being, the Nika Nika no Mi. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that Bonnie's fruit is actually like some sort of mythical fruit as well, because it's pretty powerful, the fact that she can kind of turn into Nika herself using that fruit, and potentially others.
I think it would make sense. Now, I mean, I don't want to get too morbid here, right? But we know like Ginny was captured by like a celestial dragon. I don't think he was like any celestial dragon. He could have been like high up, could have been like a god's knight, or even like a Gorosei, right? Because like even Saturn knew about like all the stuff that
Yeah,
happened,
Saturn
right?
was the one who was actually doing the experimentation, her mother. So yeah, totally could be a higher up Gorosei or celestial dragon. Because like we do know, like even with like Garling, like celestial dragons don't always only like have children amongst themselves necessarily. Like they might have children outside of celestial dragons. So it's, I mean, and we saw that with Bonnie's birth. So it's possible that that's the case too, where it's like a more prestigious celestial dragon family.
So my point that I'm getting at is okay. So like I don't think this is like some run of the mill celestial dragon. I think if Bonnie was being experimented on and was like the plaything of like a celestial dragon, right? I think it would make sense that they were also doing experiments on devil fruits, or they had like a devil fruit vault, or like some super duper like secret don't touch kind of devil fruit area.
They definitely have like a stash of devil fruits with the world government, because I mean, like you said, like Emu had to have given the Gorosei their fruits, and then like we also know from like the Great Hunting Competition that they had like a bunch of devil fruits as well, like the pawpaw fruit, or like the azure dragon fruit. Like there was like a lot of like very powerful fruits at that great hunt, and that was just one hunt. So like assuming that they have hunts every year and like prizes or devil fruits every year, like they're going to have a lot of different fruits available. And we've also seen a bunch of God's Knights with devil fruits already as well. So all of their fruits also seem to be pretty powerful or mythical and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that they do
I
have a
think it also
stash.
makes sense that like a kid without any supervision, right? Maybe she tried to escape. She's gonna run around, finds a fruit, super hungry. She's a slave. She doesn't get to eat much.
Yeah,
Finds a
yeah.
fruit, eats it, gets superpowers, and then they're like, "Damn it!"
Yeah, oops, we didn't want her to take that.
Yeah, exactly. And it just so happens like her dad's a revolutionary. He finds her. He ends up curing her and sacrificing himself. I just think that whole story's nuts. But moving forward a little bit, so we know that man killed his son and became God. So this is the death of Joy Boy, right? He was unable to fulfill his promise. Joy Boy was killed, and the world was plunged into darkness. The celestial dragons and Emu became the supreme rulers of the world, and the world was plunged into the one that we know today. History was covered up via censorship, and the lower races, for lack of a better term, were destroyed and enslaved. So my one big thing is, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but so if Emu is the sea god, like the earth god has to play like some role in the story, right? I don't think the earth god just disappeared, but yet we have yet to see anybody that could be like a manifestation of the earth god.
Yeah, I don't think we have. I mean, like, yeah, I can't recall anybody that has Earth-like abilities, like some, like maybe like earthquake or something. I can't recall, so like maybe we haven't seen that. But I mean, I was telling you this earlier, but I do think that like either we'll see like the actual like gods themselves, or like a manifestation of their devil fruit for each of the five gods that we mentioned earlier. Like, because we've already seen like Emu and Luffy, who has the Nika fruit. So I'm thinking that we're likely going to see each of the manifestations in the story before it ends.
So we talked about this a bit earlier, right? Like, so do you think Emu has his power through a fruit? Because I don't necessarily know. I like to think like Emu was corrupted by the sea god that resided in like the mother flame, right?
Yeah, I think that it's plausible. I think that's plausible that because like the sun god died, right, and that was Joy Boy. So I think that like by this time, like maybe someone like Nerona Emu ate the like sea god devil fruit, but the sea god devil fruit's will was much stronger than the Nerona Emu's will, and kind of took over his body. kind of like how like, Emu takes over other people's bodies via either Domi Reversi or the branding. I think that maybe that might have happened with the original Neurona Emu, and then, the original Neurona Emu also got immortality via like the Opi Opi no Mi or something like that. So I think it's plausible that Emu is actually a devil fruit user themselves, but it's also possible that he's not, because it would make sense for the sea god to be able to, be in water. So it kind of like goes against like the sea god, like the earth god, or sorry, the forest god is against the sea god. So it makes sense that they didn't create a devil fruit for Emu himself, and also for the earth god as well. Like it would make sense that they didn't create devil fruits for like their enemies.
Yeah, I don't think that. Well, we know the sea god hates devil fruits, right? So I don't think
Right.
the sea god would like manifest a fruit if it hates the fruit. You
Right.
get what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right, exactly. So I could go either way though, just because like it doesn't matter what if the sea god likes it or not. If enough people believe in like this specific god, it can just appear, right? So like it might not matter if the sea god likes it or not. So yeah, I can just really go either way with this one because I'm not completely sold one way or another on like if the sea god has a double fruit or not.
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down. So, and the sea gods stormed, right? So I think this is the flooding of the world
Yeah,
after that battle. And so Emu basically took over the world, flooded it, prevented people from meeting, and further segregated people. I think this is also a subtle nod to the creation of the Calm Belt, right? Further dividing the One Piece world into like the North and the South, I think it was.
right.
Or further dividing the seas from 2 to 4, right? However, I think as part of this epic final battle, I think that Joy Boy or somebody basically created the rift at Reverse Mountain to allow the seas to flow into like the Grand Line and the New World, to at least allow people to meet each other and to organize, if you were skilled enough to and strong enough to sail the seas.
Yeah, and we've seen with like Lulusia when Emu like made that call to like bombard them aerially with like those rays of like those beams of energy. Right after that, that's when like the sea levels rose again. So I'm wondering if that's an ancient weapon that Joy Boy used, like the red line, and like created like these like little like straits of passageways between the different seas. That also might have raised the sea level as well. So it kind of like all adds up in my opinion.
I think it's really interesting that X marks the spot. But
Yeah.
also, I just thought it was interesting that it's almost like a perfect X on the red line, but Luffy also has an X-shaped scar. So maybe that's like a subtle nod to it too, that eventually he's going to try to like unite the world.
Mm, yeah.
So we were also told, and they will never meet. I think they're never going to meet because supposedly they're all dead and enslaved, right? Like, unfortunately, like this is the end of the Second World. Eam reigns supreme. Censorship and darkness have overfallen the world with the Void Sentry, and these dreams, for all intents and purposes, have been dashed
Yeah.
or destroyed, even, or other adjectives that or verbs that start with D. Okay, but let's talk about the mural, some of the elements in the mural a little bit. So we see like the earth god and the forest god clashing in the sky, but we also see that there's a ship smiting the world. I think this is like Uranus or the Maxim. It's shooting down a giant lightning bolt. It would make sense that Enel, who is playing God, would try to depict events that happened with an actual god being Emu, right? So I think it's very interesting that Uranus, well, what we think is Uranus, has Mother Flame all around it and is summoning a giant lightning bolt and being overseen by Emu. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, if you think about the Elbaf arc currently, they're greatly afraid of lightning hitting the Atom Tree. And maybe this is depicting the Eve Tree actually burning because that lightning bolt coming from the ship is hitting like the trunk of the tree. So maybe this is actually how the Eve Tree got destroyed. It was burned to a crisp.
I think that's 100% right. I think this is basically Emu like I assume that Emu is looking towards like the ancient kingdom or like down towards the Noah. However, this could also be Emu like overseeing the world tree burning, right? So maybe the forest god and the earth god are actually clashing right now. But during that clash, like Emu is trying to destroy the world tree, right? But
Yeah. Or at least
the
the
forest
Eve
god
tree.
seems to be, yeah, well, the tree. But the forest god seems to be like getting overwhelmed, right? Like you can only do like one thing at a time and like 10 things are going on. So it would make sense that this could be like the destruction of the tree. And that might be why, like, okay, so like all the devil fruits that have been created are already there, right? There's no like new devil fruit genesis. There's not like new powers that are coming out. We're just rediscovering fruits that already exist. Does that make
Correct.
sense?
Yeah. And I wanted to actually kind of add on to the forest god. We see that the forest god, it kind of looks like a dragon with horns. And I really think that it might be depicting Loki's devil fruit because we know that Loki also has horns. And I think that this might be like Nidhogg, like the Nidhogg dragon devil fruit. It would make sense that a dragon would be able to like breathe fire as well. And I think that this is actually probably depicting not Loki himself, but like maybe like the previous user from like, before the Void Sentry, before it became a fruit, and, using this to defend against the Earth spirit or the Earth god.
I think it's definitely possible. Yeah, I think so. That's how I kind of interpreted it now that we kind of have like a better idea of what Loki's devil fruit could be and like the significance of like Elbaf being in a tree, right? So yeah, I definitely think that this could be like a manifestation of the original holder of like Loki's fruit because we know that that fruit's been in possession of the giants, since the Void Century, if not like a little bit before. So perhaps that's where the forest god originally died, right? And then the fruit was reincarnated, which the giants guarded over all those centuries until, Harold had to pass it on to Loki to stop the tree from falling into the world government's hands.
Yeah, yeah, I agree completely.
So I guess if we want to talk a little bit about it, so we do see that stylistic representation of Zunisha. I kind of interpreted this in like a different way, right? Given that Zunisha has been like walking on the world for like centuries, right? I thought that perhaps Zunisha could have also been used to try to raise the Noah, and maybe that's the grave sin that it committed in the past. That's why it has to walk the sea forever. Is that it either it defied Emu in some way, I think, and I think it either tried to raise the Noah or it was like a compatriot or a pet of like Vivi or not Vivi, Nefertari Lily.
Well, we know that the Zunisha knows Joy Boy, and I'm pretty sure that like they were friends. So I think that it could also just be Emu being upset at Zunisha for like siding with Joy Boy as well, and kind of punishing his its part in like the battle before the Void Sentry.
I just couldn't imagine another reason why Zunisha would be depicted unless Zunisha was like part of this final battle in a way too. But at the same time, if this battle's happening and the world tree is getting smited, then, what are the fishmen doing, right? Like underwater, they just chill and be like, oh, I know this battle's happening, but this is the perfect time for us to come to the surface and just like build our homes, right? So
Or maybe they were separated by the red line and they weren't able to make it.
it's possible. So maybe like Zunisha and the fishmen were trying to help out during this battle and the burning of the world tree, but they were too late.
Yeah, I think that Zunisha was helping out. I don't see any fishmen around, so I'm thinking that maybe the fishmen weren't part of it. But yeah, I think Zunisha was around because yeah, that person that's riding on top of his tusk, or it could just be a boat. That's either Joy Boy or that could also be Davy D. Jones potentially as well, because of the crown and rocks saying that Davy D. Jones was like supposed to be the true king of the world. So it could go either way. And like if our theory about the D clan is correct, then that would mean that Davy D. Jones was also part of Joy Boy's crew as well. So he would likely be fighting with Joy Boy against Emu as well. So yeah, there's just a lot to consider.
It's interesting you mentioned that because like I interpret the person in the boat, like I do see how that could be like Davy D. Jones now that we know about him. And I think I even brought that up once we learned about Davy D. Jones, where like he could have been like the original king of like the ancient kingdom. However, if this is Emu, I like to see, or I'd like to imagine that this is Emu like literally overseeing like the tree burning and like being smitten by like the ancient weapon, like just to sit here and like revel in like the tree lighting on fire and making sure the job gets done.
Well, if that's the case, I would imagine that maybe Zunisha is like Domi reversied and not really on the side of Emu. Because we know that Zunisha, since he's a friend of Joy Boy, is likely a good guy. So maybe Zunisha was like Domi reversied at this point, and that's how Emu kind of was riding on top of him and kind of guiding him and kind of leading the way towards destroying the tree.
I mean, have you seen Zunisha? Dude's seen some stuff, man. Like those sunken eyes. It looks like he's been possessed once or twice.
Fair, yeah.
Okay, so moving on, I think we are ready for the third age.
Can I read this one?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, so in the notation for the third world, we got within the chaos there was emptiness. The inconvenient remnants recall the promised day and hear the voice of the half moon. The sun god dances and laughs, guiding the world to its end. The sun returns and brings a new morning, and they will surely meet. So yeah,
pretty foreboding.
It is pretty foreboding. So let's just start from the top. So within the chaos, there was emptiness. So emptiness again is, you know, the void. It could be talking about the Void Sentry. It could be talking about Emu. And yeah, we know that the Void Sentry is, you know, hidden by censorship. Like they got rid of like all references to it or as much as they could. Obviously, like they weren't like a 100% successful because Ohara existed. And then like after Ohara was destroyed, like in the Giants library on Elbaf, some of those books from Ohara were transported over there. So they weren't 100% successful. And also there was like the poneglyphs that exist that kind of depict what happened in the Void Sentry as well. So there's a few different like ways where you can kind of learn what happened during the Void Sentry, despite the world government and Emu trying to censor it.
I recall, or no, I agree with you. I'm sorry. There is actually moving forward, I picked up on a little piece that I think actually refers to the creation of the poneglyphs.
Oh, cool.
Do you want to continue?
Yeah, so the next section, the inconvenient remnants recall the promised day. Yeah, I'm not completely sure about this one. Like the promised day might be like, you know, like the final battle to, you know, take down the World Sentry. I'm not exactly sure. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is actually in reference to the promise that Joy Boy made to Poseidon of like bringing the fishmen up and like the rising of the sun once again to allow everybody to like live in harmony.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Once again, I'd like to imagine the inconvenient remnants are referring to like the D clan or the people who survive with the will of the ancient kingdom, right? Like they're remnants, so they're like leftovers and they're inconvenient for like the current world order. So really those people, they remember the promise made. They're working towards the dawn, as it were, like the fishmen who are awaiting the Noah and the Nox pirates who are awaiting the dawn, the Kozukis who are keeping the prophecy alive.
Which one were the Nox pirates again?
That was Pedro's crew, the minks that were guarding the poneglyph and awaiting the dawn of the world.
Sure, sure.
So, and the one point I wanted to make is they referenced the voice of the half moon. I think this is literally them describing the crescent moon people, the Kozukis creating the poneglyphs. So the inconvenient truth that's like left in the world for, you know, those who are skilled enough and allied with the ancient kingdom to really understand the true history and the story of Joy Boy and the ancient kingdom.
Yeah, the half moon also is reminiscent of like, you know, the D for the will of the D as well. So it might be related to that as well because, you know, the D's are, they're carrying that like passion all the way down from Joy Boy's era to the modern day. So like that's also potentially like, Joy Boy's voice as well.
No, I think so, 100%. Like I told you, I think that poneglyphs themselves are also imbued with hockey for people who can't read it. That's what makes them indestructible. But you also get the willpower behind the hockey, right? So that's why the voice of all things works. And I think that at Raftail, there is definitely a gigantic poneglyph or some kind of story of, Joy Boy's history. And I think it's imbued with his hockey. So I think that's how Roger and the rest of the Roger pirates were able to like really understand Joy Boy's story, because we know Roger couldn't read the poneglyphs. I mean, Odin could, but Roger had the voice of all things.
I have a really off the wall theory about what's at Laftel, which is I think that how Roger's ship there's that like unhatched egg. What if the egg hatches and that's maybe what's guarding Laftel? Because we
Oh,
never seen what
interesting.
happens with the egg. So like we know
We never
that
see the ship again either.
we never see the ship again either. So maybe he left the ship there, or maybe he left the egg hatched while they were in Laptail, and maybe like that's like some sort of spirit guarding the One Piece.
Like a rock or something.
Well, I wouldn't think of like a rock wouldn't hatch from an egg. I would think that it'd be like some sort of like lizard or dragon or I don't know, maybe a giant chicken. Who knows?
Why did the giant chicken cross the road?
To get to the other side.
Well, I mean, that's the only explanation, right? Or to guard the One Piece, perhaps.
But yeah, or maybe it's like a cockatrice. A cockatrice would be cool if it was like guarding the One Piece. Sorry, that was a huge tangent, but I was just like thinking about that randomly the other day, and I'm like, whatever happened to the giant egg? And I was like, maybe it's guarding the One Piece at Laugh-Tale.
It makes sense. Or maybe they all had a giant omelet once they got there.
Because like otherwise, I feel like we would have seen something present day that would have hatched out of it by now.
Dragons come from eggs.
Dragons do come from eggs, yeah.
And balls. Dragon balls.
No, no, but Piccolo came from an egg. So maybe
I
it's
don't remember the
Piccolo.
lore.
Oh yeah,
Could
so
be.
Piccolo, his father would lay eggs and out of his mouth, and then like give birth to different children, and like he would name them after musical instruments, like tambourine and piccolo, and drum. I think was
Wonderful.
one. Yeah.
But, at least we're not talking about Naruto for one.
Well, we weren't.
So the sun god dances and laughs. I think this is referring to the reemergence of Nika, right? Luffy going Gear 5 and bringing about the prophecy and Nika coming back to life, as it were. I think it's also interesting if we want to talk about the mural for a second. This is the first time we've ever seen Nika depicted using rubber powers. So I think it's really cool once we learn that Luffy is Nika, that we start getting depictions of Nika acting more like Luffy, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we've seen depictions of Nika before, and it's usually like Nika dancing. It's a similar pose to what's in the mural. But yeah, this one, Nika is all stretchy, and he's also got a sword, which, we have seen Luffy use a sword in the past at the Colosseum. Like, he wasn't good at it, or I guess technically it was Lucy, but we have seen Luffy use a sword during what was it, Dressrosa arc. So I thought that
He
that
also
was
used one in Wano too. He
oh, and
used the
Wano.
Katetsu.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
I don't know. I never figured Luffy to be a swordsman, but Zoro, watch your back, I guess. So the sun god is guiding the world to its end. I think it's pretty self-explanatory that he's guiding, the second world to its end to allow the third world to come about. Or what do you think?
Yeah, yeah. So it's gonna be the new dawn. So it's all like this whole story is about like a new dawn, a new era. So Luffy and the sun god, they're leading the entire world escape this like void sentry, this void darkness, and come into a new world where like all the seas might be connected, where people can from all walks of life or under the ocean even can, come out and just be themselves and be treated as equals.
Wow, all things related to the Void Sentry, huh?
Yeah, like our podcast.
Exactly. I'm happy you got the joke. So the sun returns and brings a new morning. Like we stated, the dawn of the world will come. And it's very interesting because I got a little sidetracked as I usually do, but this is something that is referenced in Bink's sake, actually. If you can hold on throughout the night, the sun will surely rise, Ed. So the dawn of the world is coming. The sun is rising. The story of One Piece is literally the sun rising into the sky. Who would have thought? And they will surely meet. I always imagined that this was speaking like about like individual people, like kings meeting. However, I have another read now that, I'm a little older, wiser. I've read the story a little bit more. So I think that this is actually referring to all the races being united in harmony once again. Because in the first world, we learned that after the creation of the Red Line, they will never meet, right? However, that now once the Red Line is destroyed and the sea levels have receded and land is anew, I think that perhaps they were all originally united by land instead of divided by seas. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's very plausible. Like, we do know that Sanji's dream is to find the all blue. So, yeah, it would make sense that in that case, all of the land would be like one giant piece of land, and then all of the sea would be like the rest of the planet. So, yeah, that rings true to me as well.
So I'm happy we're in agreement, but if we want to talk about a couple elements of the mural for at least the third world. So my read was always that this was going to be like the final battle that's going to be depicted in the story, right? This is like the coming about of like the third world. This is the sun finally rising into the sky. However, I think it's interesting that this is probably something that's played out throughout time, right? This could also be a depiction of the final battle between Joy Boy and Emu and the Celestial Dragons.
Yeah, like you said, it might be like Ragnarok, and like in Norse mythology, Ragnarok is like the end of the world, but it's also the beginning of the new world. So that also kind of rings true to what One Piece is going with as well, is like a rebirth of a new world. So it's all kind of, poetic with how everything's set up.
I think so. And in the mural, we see a whole bunch of races represented. I'm just going to go through some of the ones that are easy to pick out. So we see the Tontada. We see whales. We know that Joy Boy was affiliated with the whales. I don't know specifically what species, but I think this might be going all the way back to Luffy and his friendship with Laboon, who is an island whale. So I think this might have been something that was forecasted way in advance. We also know that Luffy's friends just generally with animals, right?
Yep.
He's a monkey, of course, so how could he not be? So we also see giants. We see ancient giants, and we also see normal giants. We see samurai. We see ninja. And so there's a couple people that could be up to debate. If you look hard enough, you might be able to see long neck and a long leg and a long arm. There's a mink, appears to have white hair, so it looks like he's going Sulong. But we also see what could be a representation of another mink, or specifically another race that we have not met yet, carrying like a saber. So be on the lookout for a potential new race. We see fishmen in the form of what looks to be a mermaid wearing a crown. But we also see a fish, so I don't know if the giant children were throwing shade or if those could actually be sea kings. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the fish being Sea King would make the most sense to me because it's right next to like the mermaid, and we know that Shirahoshi is Poseidon, who controls the Sea King. So to me, that makes the most sense that that giant like goldfish-looking fish is probably a representation of all of the Sea Kings.
We also see a flying person, dark, like looks to be a Lunarian. But this could also be a representation of just the sky races as a whole, but definitely a Lunarian. So perhaps King will come back in the final battle. Yay. I think he's
I think
a
he
really good
will.
character.
I think he will, yeah.
And we also see Emmett as well. So that also led me to believe that perhaps this was depicting like the end of the second world, right? The cataclysmic battle that led to the end of Joy Boy. Because we know, at least I think so, that Emmett was destroyed at Vegapunk's island.
Yeah, I think that it doesn't need to be taken literally, but to me this is still depicting like the final battle, just because I don't know if all of these races were fighting against emu necessarily. It would make sense that they were. But yeah, we don't really know specifically what happened during the Void Sentry. We just kind of have like bits and pieces. So this could potentially be representing the end of the second world, or it could be potentially representing like the end of the third world, or what's going to happen in the final battle against Emu.
I think so. And we see like this giant god looking thing, which we can only assume to be Emu. I mean, not a god as much as like a demon or a monster.
It's
But if
demonic.
you look closely, it's actually flooding the world. It's raining during this final battle. So I think it would be very fitting that the creature that's trying to drown the world is currently trying to drown the antagonist in this final battle, right? And also weakening any kind of devil fruit users and holding a sun. Or I originally interpreted this as a sun, but it could also just be like a large amount of mother flame. It could be like engorging itself on mother flame to get more powerful, right?
Yeah, I think that's most likely what it is. And we do see those like sun motes coming out of or above that shadowy demonic figure that we think is Emu. So yeah, I think that that's just like a representation of like the mother flame energy like we saw in the first world section. And it's just, excess energy like leaking out of it and like floating out to the sky.
So, quick question. Do you think that this flame swirling around its arm could also be like it doing like an attack utilizing mother flame, right? Like manifesting the energy to attack them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think that it's using mother flame to power itself to get like a power boost effectively. And then it takes, all of the different races across the world and all the strongest people to fight against it to defeat it potentially.
I think so too. So like we know in the second age, right? Like man found mother flame again and then they had like that huge war. But currently in the story, like the only one who controls the mother flame is like Emu and the world government, right? And they utilize it to oppress the other races. So I think that's kind of like a manifestation of what's happening here.
I would say currently also Dr. Vegapunk can manifest the mother flame as well because he kind of rediscovered it. And we do know that how many satellites of his survived? Is it just one?
Just one.
Yeah, so we know that there's...
No, two. So the original one, the Stella survived. No, the Stella died. So two, we have, I forget specifically.
Is it Lilith?
But the one that defected.
Yeah, Lilith.
Yeah, we have the one that defected and then the one that's on Elbaf.
Yeah, so there's technically two different Vegapunks as well that can control the mother flame, and maybe the one that defected is the one that is helping Emu get control of the mother flame and gave him the one that he's holding in the mural. So yeah, there's definitely some other people outside of Emu that also have mother flame knowledge.
I think that's the whole sure, O'Hara could be a reason why like Vegapunk originally got, but I think the fact that Vegapunk wanted to share the mother flame with the world instead of using it as a weapon for Emu I think that's the primary motivating factor.
Yeah.
If you ask me. So I think like Emu would stop at nothing to like continually use the mother flame to ensure that the ancient kingdom would never rise again or people couldn't be powerful enough to rival him or her. So, but we do see like this giant demonic monster that's feeding off mother flame is also commanding like a small army. There are like 6 people. We know that there's 5 Gorosei, but there's another member here. I don't know. Do you want to speculate over who those evil people could be?
It could just be the Gods Knights too.
Yeah, I think so. However, like if we want to talk about power scaling here, like who's a more devout follower of Emu, like the Gorosei or the Gods Knights? Who's more powerful, a Gorosei or a Gods Knight?
Well, the reason why I say Gods Knights is because we know that celestial dragons like to wear their like suits because they don't want to like breathe the same air or whatever, and like these people look like they're wearing helmets. So that's what leads me to believe that they're just normal celestial dragon Gods Knights, because we have seen Gods Knights wear like the suits as well, but we've never seen a Gorosei.
We saw the Kieran guy.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the Gorosei were founded after this. I just think that the Gorosei just have to be much stronger. But I think it's interesting that there's 6 of them. One of the things, I guess if we want to move on to the theory section a little bit, one of the things that I thought was very interesting that I never picked up on before is like the names of the Gorosei plus the ancient weapons fulfill like all the planets
Yep.
besides Earth. I don't know why, but I just never put
besides
two and two
Earth and the
together
sun.
before.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
I just think that's very interesting. So does that mean like a Gorosei is on par with like an ancient weapon in terms of like physical power or destructive potential?
Possibly, although like, I mean, we did see all of them attack at Egghead, and like the Straw Hats were able to kind of like hold them back. I mean, they did have help with like the Vegapunks, and they had help with Emmett, but it wasn't like that much of a disaster for them. Like they did run away, but like they ended up at least defeating Saturn because Saturn, got punished and lost his powers and kind of got demoted into oblivion. So
that's one thing that makes me kind of curious, right? So like Emu right now is like controlling Gunko and controlled Saturn in the past and gave him like a huge boost to strength. If like Vegapunk's island was like a make or break situation, like wouldn't Emu have like manifested himself there to ensure that like the Straw Hats wouldn't get away and just like finish his business when he needed to?
yeah, but I don't think Emu can like get off of Maryjois. So I think that that's the reason he needs to use these like avatars of himself, of like using the Gorosei or the God's Knight.
So I think a good point too is like, so we know that at least on God Valley, we can assume that they did some prep work to draw out like summoning circles and stuff to make sure that the Gorosei could get there. But like at Punk Records, they didn't really have that. And we know like at Elbaf, where like Gunko's manifested like Emu into herself, we know that there's like summoning circles there too. Maybe it's just that they didn't have the prep work to like demonify it before.
Well, wait, how did going. We know that Saturn went there manually, right? How did the other Gorosei get there?
Saturn summoned them.
Oh, so he probably made like a circle once he got there.
Yeah, he did. I've seen it in the anime. It looks wicked cool.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think that like, I don't know. If I was Emu, I would want to like bolster these guys like however I could to make sure like, Vegapunk didn't escape, which just so happened. It's like I don't know. It seems like a little plot hole.
I'm thinking that he will bolster them in the final battle more with the Mother Flame. I think that because during that fight with Vegapunk, he didn't have access to the Mother Flame yet, but now that Lilith defected, he'll have access and he'll be able to make not only the God's Knight stronger, but also the Gorosei stronger, and they're going to be a bigger threat in that final battle.
Ooh, here's another interesting point too. Do you think like the Pacifista could be imbued with Mother Flame to make them even more powerful?
I do, but I think that the new Pacifista, like the S series, I think that they're going to become good guys. Like I think they're going to get a mind of their own and kind of wake up and actually side with with Luffy and like everyone against Emu.
Yeah, I think it's similar to like what Luffy did what Vegapunk did to the Pacifista originally. Like, he still encoded like a prime directive to like override the logic like at the end of the day.
Yeah, so that like at least the original Kuma could protect Bonnie.
Yeah, I think it would be very similar with, oh my gosh, I forget their names. It begins with the S.
Yeah, the S series. So it's like, like the S Snake and S Hawk and
yeah, so I think it would be very similar that like Vegapunk, would create like a logic that would allow them to like escape the world government's control and get some of their own agency if like, Luffy or something commanded them. But we already saw this with the little Boa one.
Yeah, S Snake, yep.
Yeah. Yeah, we already saw her like go to pieces over Luffy when like Luffy asked her to do something. I think that just comes from like the lineage factor that was like used to create them, right? I think at like a certain level, like listen, I ship Luffy and Boa, okay? So I think at like some level, like it's hard coded in Boa's DNA to like, go weak for Luffy. And that's why S Snake is exhibiting those same things, because I think it's like the lineage factor that does that.
I think similarly with some of the God's Knights, not all of them, but some of them, like maybe like Gunko, like I believe that she's also going to defect and either get Domi Reversi to the good side. So like maybe like Luffy will be able to awaken his own version of Domi Reversi and flip anybody who was turned was turned by Emu onto his side instead, because that's how Othello is played, right? You flip pieces. So I think that
Yeah, I think he's gonna do that with like Bonnie's powers.
maybe with Bonnie's powers, but either way, I think that Gunko is like a prime candidate to get flipped to the sun's side of the battle, just because we saw her kind of have like a lapse of, thinking about Brooke and her childhood, enjoying Brooke's music, all of that. So I think that we might see her kind of, fight against Emu's control and eventually get turned over to the light side.
I think so too. I think like Luffy is going to like free these people like within their hearts and like within their souls. I think that the fact that he has like Brook the Soul King on his side is going to allow him to like take like the drums of liberation and really allow them to like resonate with the souls of the people he's freeing, right?
Yeah.
So I think that Gunko had like that flashback where she's knows Brook and she's like, she likes his music. I think that's really like the crack like in the door that's going to allow him to like push into her and like liberate her.
Yeah, it's very plausible that Brooke is going to play a crucial part in, helping out with freeing people's souls and like maybe flipping them back to the light side or something like that. That makes a lot of sense to me.
I think so because like even Nika, like you got to think about it, right? Like Nika and Luffy in himself is like known for the drums of liberation, like his song, like dun da da dun da da dun. That thing, like it would make sense that the one person who has soul magic and who is like musically inclined just so happens to be like Luffy's musician, right?
Maybe he'll play some rumba music. Am I right?
Hey, yeah, for our Brazilian pirate captain.
Was he the captain?
No, Luffy. Okay, so isn't
Luffy.
Rumba
Oh, sorry. I was
Brazilian?
talking about the rumba
The
pirates.
Rumbar Pirates.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it all makes sense, doesn't it? I'm pretty sure Rumba's Brazilian.
It might be. I don't know.
Ooh, but I think it all makes sense. I think it's all like coming up aligned. I think it.
It's Cuban.
So, oh well, you can't win them all, I guess.
It's okay.
But I think it's bound to happen. I think Luffy is going to flip people, but I think he's going to utilize Brook, and I think he's going to utilize Bonnie to allow people to come to his side. I don't know. At that point, do you think like the celestial dragons can be redeemed? I mean, they're not enslaved, but do you think Luffy can like empower them to like not be lame? Like kind of like Homing was, where he like found Jesus. He had his come to Jesus moment.
I think it depends on each individual because, I mean, we've already seen certain celestial dragons be like stand-up people, like Sabo, for instance. So, like, I think that like certain celestial dragons are too far gone in their beliefs, whereas others might, be able to, see different perspectives.
I think so too, but like, yeah, it's up to Luffy to free these people. I mean, he's in Gunko, he's gonna free a God's Knight. I mean, she would have to be. She's part celestial dragon, right?
Yep.
I mean, no, I guess that's not true because Harold was a God's Knight, but he was not a celestial dragon. So maybe Gunko was like picked up by Emu, and
No, Gunko is part
groomed.
of the like Myanmar family, something like that.
Oh yeah, she is part of like the Myanmar family. So
Yeah.
she's a celestial dragon proper.
Yeah.
So I guess she's not too far gone, huh? If she likes Brooks' music.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that I definitely think that Gunko is gonna get redeemed. Cause like also she's just got like she has a really cool character design. I think people resonate with her.
Well, she has duality baked into her character design, right?
Yeah. With her eyes and all of that too.
Yeah, okay, but I still think that, so I still think that, like, Emu, by manifesting people, like, manifesting himself, like, into the person, as we saw with, like, Saturn and Gunko currently, gives him, like, a huge power boost. I think that there's going to be, like, a huge struggle once we snap back to Elbaf. Do you think there's a possibility he's going to, like, manifest himself into, like, Shamrock, too? To, like, give himself, like, a much stronger boon? And do you think that he could manifest in multiple people at once? Like, do you think he can like imbue like Shamrock and Gunko and Summers at the same time or something like that?
So are you talking about like what we saw with Saturn at God Valley where we saw
Yes.
Yeah.
Where he becomes like the crown, right?
Yeah, so I think that might be possible when he has access to the Mother Flame. I think that that's kind of going to be their like power boost for the God's Knights as well as for the Gorosei.
Cool. I can't wait to see it. Well, this has been a huge overview on the mural. It's been a long time coming. I'm happy that we actually got to finally sit down and discuss it. I think we're pretty spot on with a lot of our theories. And I think that this allows us to really understand the prophecy as a whole. And the fact that we're in Elbaf, the land of Ragnarok, and we're talking about cycles of death and rebirth, I find to be very interesting and totally a great masterclass by Oda.
I mean, honestly, this mural is kind of what got us to restart the podcast as well, because we're like, oh my God, we got to talk about this, you know?
Yeah. So 51 episodes in, really happy this kind of like reinvigorated my love for One Piece and like theories as a whole. Like I never stopped reading. I just really stopped getting into the weeds and trying to connect all the dots. But I really do love this series and I'm really excited to see where we're going. So thanks everybody. This has been episode 51 of the Void Sentry Podcast, the Elbaf Mural Super Show. And I just want to say thanks for sailing with us. That's it for this voyage of the Void Sentry Podcast. Listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you sail for One Piece content. Catch our bite-sized theories and lore on TikTok and Instagram Reels. Until next time, whether you're seeking the poneglyphs or unraveling the history behind the Will of the D, listen to the voice of all things and we'll see you on our next voyage.